Art, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Good to see you again, Nick.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Yeah.
How,
I,
how are you
I
keeping
keep
up?
pretty good. I mean, I'm keeping up with your blogs, of course, and all of your postings on Facebook. So I feel like I'm still in touch.
Yeah, yeah. I'm quite active on social media. I mean, what's funny is I've had a few of my younger clients tell me to ditch Facebook. They said, get off Facebook. It's for old people. And I mean, I still use Facebook. I use Facebook. So I
Yeah.
still use Facebook, but I'm noticing now the younger crowd goes towards more of the Instagram. And now I have an
Yeah.
even younger crowd who are in their early 20s who are telling me to get on Snapchat. And I can't manage all these things. I'm gonna have to get someone to manage my social media platforms.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. I am old, so I guess it's pretty normal for me to be on Facebook. But,
but but
but
there's a market for it though. I
uh,
mean, I use Facebook and the Facebook page is great to have. You know,
It is, and for me, I find Facebook just a lot more user friendly, and I don't know, it just seems like you get more for the time you're putting into it than with the other ones. But that's maybe I'm old, so maybe I don't get it. But
no,
that's how it
like I
is.
said, my dad just got on Facebook. I just put him on about a few months ago and he loves it. I see him, he's arguing on
Yeah.
my wall with people. He's always updating things. He's up there and he's liking all my photos. So my dad's very active on Facebook now. He actually
Oh
even
yeah.
uses have you used Facebook Marketplace?
Yes, all the time. It's
So does
great.
he. He loves it.
Some great deals on there.
Yeah, yeah. I bought a few of my Jordan mids off Facebook Marketplace actually, because
Oh, nice.
they're hard to find in stores, right? So you're gonna pay more,
Yeah,
but
great.
Facebook Marketplace is
Yeah.
great for that. But you're also on Instagram. You just don't use it as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I've got a lot of friends, and my kids, of course, are on Instagram, so I'm on there more as an observer than a poster.
Yeah.
If I post stuff, I tend to do it on Facebook,
Right.
and that's where I have my connections. But it's also because I guess Facebook has been around just longer than Instagram,
Yeah.
and that's what I started with, and so I just sort of carried on and continued with that. TikTok, of course, is another big one now. I'm not
Yeah.
on TikTok. I don't do anything on TikTok, but some of those videos are hilarious, and I like watching them. And Twitter that's another one, right? So I'm on there too, but
Are
again,
you?
mostly as an observer. Yeah.
I
So
could never get around Twitter. I just never got into it. But funny you mentioned the TikTok
yeah,
because I've been using TikTok for about 3 years just to make my videos for Instagram. And at the time, I
yeah,
had no idea really what TikTok was. And it wasn't until Robin told me, she's like, you have like 50 teenage girls following you. I'm like, why? She's like, it's for kids. I had no idea. I don't
yeah,
even like update my profile or anything. I use it just
yeah,
exclusively
yeah.
just to make video content for Instagram. So I had to delete
Oh
that
yeah.
TikTok account because it looked pretty bad. I had all these teenage girls and boys on my account, got rid of that. And now I just use it just to make videos on Instagram. So that's the only thing I use TikTok for. But I have a lot of
Yeah.
people telling me they're watching TikTok videos now, like your generation, even older, telling me they love watching all these TikTok videos. So it's,
Yeah. Well, some people are so creative, they're just so much fun to watch,
yeah.
and they're really, really good. There's a lot of crap on there too, of course,
Oh my God.
but
Yeah,
you don't have to watch everything, right? You just gloss over that or move on or whatever. But
totally.
the creative ones, I love watching those. Those are great.
So one of the reasons why I reached out to you the other day with regards to coming on the channel has a lot
Yeah.
to do with, I know you have quite a few opinions and thoughts on what's going on right now with the latest restrictions here in BC. And I want to
Yeah.
hear them. I want to hear your thoughts on, first of all, the closure of fitness facilities, that restriction last week that was made.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, um, I've given it a lot of thought, and I've looked at it carefully, and I just have so many conclusions I've drawn from that are for me personally, and I'll try to share them in a way which will be more for raising or having people at least start to think about it a little bit, because I found there's sort of two camps of people who are my friends and acquaintances. There's one camp that's all about the what I call sort of like the fear factor, and then there's the other camp which is the rebellious factor, right? And so you want to be respectful of the people who have concerns and are afraid, even though you may feel a little more aligned with the rebellious people. But in any event, when it comes to the closures, when I really started to think about it, it just seemed wrong to me. And I really had to think about, well, why does it feel wrong? Why doesn't it feel right? And my conclusion, and this is just my view, is that it's not about health at all. It's gone so far down the road now that it's basically political at this point. And the reason why I say that, and I say that for a reason, is it's not just something I throw out there because I'm angry at the government for some reason. But when you think about it, there's several reasons. One is I'm not aware of any gyms which are like transmission sites or super spreaders or anything like that. In fact, in our gym, I don't think anybody's contracted COVID or spread COVID at all. And I haven't heard of another single gym that has. But, let's say I'm missing something there and there's more information out there. Let's just go beyond it for a bit. So one of the things I thought about is, does it make sense? And to me, it doesn't make sense to allow 6 people per table and multiple tables in a small space in a restaurant, people with no masks, laughing and joking and everything going on.
Drinking.
But to close a gym, right? Yeah. And a gym where you've got people working at individually in their own workstations, anywhere like 10 feet apart or more many times. And they're all spread out. Everybody wipes down the machines. A lot of people wear masks the entire workout that they're there. And the showers are closed down, so nobody's taking showers. You're just going in with your stuff and doing your workout and leaving. And to me, to close that down, but to leave open other venues like restaurants or like concerts, for example, even though they're half capacity, it just doesn't make sense from a health perspective.
Yeah.
And so I started, well, why is that? Why are they doing this? And my conclusion is 2 things. One is the government has to be seen to be doing something. They can't just stand by idly and do nothing. So they want to do something. So what can they do? Well, the other thing they have to do is keep generating revenue, because they've been spending like the dickens for the last couple of years to control, not only respond to all of the COVID stuff, but all of the natural disasters we've had between the fires and the floods and everything else. They have to keep generating revenue. Well, restaurants which sell food and alcohol generate a ton of tax revenue. People going to the gym generate almost none.
No.
So let's be seen to be doing something. Yeah. Let's close the gyms. Yeah. We can say, hey, we're doing something, everybody. You can relax. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can go have a little party at the restaurant and you can generate all this tax revenue.
Yeah.
And to me, it's for that reason, it's just come down to politics and it has really nothing to do with health anymore. Yeah. And that's confirmed a little bit by some other things that are happening. So, for example, there was in Abbotsford, there was a post-COVID clinic, which this was for people who have the long haul issues after getting COVID.
Okay.
And this clinic was set up to help them treat them and help them cope and to whatever they do. Well, they've stopped funding that. That's shutting down now. So again, if it's about health, if that's their concern, they would fund that. They wouldn't just shut it down.
Yeah.
The other thing is with the community swimming pools. I don't know, every community, every municipality, city, they'll have their own rules. But at least here in Surrey, the swimming pools are open. They close the weight room, but the pools are open. And again,
so
that
ridiculous.
makes no sense to me.
Not at all.
So ridiculous. Right?
Yeah.
So these are the reasons why.
No, I agree with you 100%. And, it's refreshing to talk to someone like you, because when I say it, and I was saying this yesterday to my friend Pilar on the channel, I was saying, as we're personal trainers, we're gym owners. So when we come out and say it just looks like we're grabbing for money, we're hungry for money. But at the end of the day, I want to see the data. I want to see the research backing the claims that fitness facilities are responsible for COVID outbreaks. Because like you said,
Right.
you don't know of anyone who's been exposed to COVID at your facility. I don't know a single one of my clients who's contracted COVID-19. I know it's a real thing, but has contracted, never mind at my gym, but it's contracted it at all. So I'm thinking, why are we being shut down? And I don't want to just say, why are we being shut down? Why are all gyms being shut down? And I agree with you. I completely agree with you. I do think this is political for the exact reason, because I had a client ask me the other day, like, why are restaurants still allowed to bring in people? Why are concerts allowed to stay open? I'm like, well, who do you think brings in the money? I'm like, it's all about money. It's all about taxes.
Yes, it is.
So
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
What do you think about? Do you think the restrictions? I mean, they told us come January 18th, gyms are going to reopen. Do you believe that, or do you think it's going to be extended?
I've become pretty cynical. I think it'll be extended.
So do I.
Remember when this whole thing started, it was like 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Let's all tighten our belts. We'll all be okay. Well, it's almost 2 years now, and nothing's really changed.
No.
The numbers of people contracting COVID are as high as they've ever been, if not higher.
Yeah.
And this is despite the people getting multiple jabs already. It just, no, they're not going to. I'm so cynical now with respect to the things they say. They've lost credibility completely for many reasons over this whole thing. I really doubt it. In fact, I've started shopping again for some home equipment.
Yeah.
In anticipation of that. So, I just kind of doubt it. And it's so sad because of all places to shut down, the gym provides people with so much mental and physical, obviously, benefit. The mental health, the just going to getting those endorphins going, feeling productive, like you're doing something. And just to take that away just makes zero sense. I mean, it just drives people further and further into this depressive state. And it's just really sad. I
agree. It's funny because the powers to be that make these decisions, you think of, okay, what percentage of the population actually works out on a regular basis? It's actually not as high as we'd like to think. I mean, statistically speaking, it's usually about 30 to 40% of the population work out like you or I do 5-6 days a week in the gym. So most people taking this away, for a lot of people, they're like, no big deal. But here, I notice it more here in Vancouver, because Vancouver, we are so active and fit. So I was talking to a friend of mine in Montreal, and they have the similar restrictions. Gyms are closed there. And he's like, no one really seems to care as much. I mean, people do care, but not to the degree here. You saw that petition I sent you last week about signing to keep the gyms open, right? And I think when I sent it to you, there was probably about 500 signatures. And I looked the next day, there was 30,000 signatures. So the thing about BC is that it's a fit province, right? People like to work out.
Yeah.
So I think they're getting a lot of pushback from this right now. And I would like to think that because of the pushback they're getting, they're going to ease up on these restrictions. I don't know if that goes back to controlling numbers on the floor. Everyone wears a mask again, but you're going to shut down these businesses. We're not going to be able to survive a second time around. I've talked to quite a few gym owners actually, and they've told me this. They said, we're not going to survive this. They're offering government grants of, $10,000 maximum payments. The $10,000 is nothing. That's not, what is that going to keep you afloat for maybe half a month? So, I mean, it's not going to work for a lot of gyms, and those gyms are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Which gym are you training at right now?
I'm at, it's Fitness World, Semiahmoo. It's actually a beautiful gym. I really, really like it. From the outside, it looks really small, but it's got good floor space and lots of great equipment. And I tend to go early in the morning, like around 6. And, so there's lots of room and you always get what I need. And the equipment's pretty well maintained. And so it's a good one. Yeah.
And Fitness World, I mean, we all know what happened with them. They were originally Steve Nash. Well, they were originally Fitness World. Then they bought over Steve Nash, became Steve Nash, or Steve Nash bought Fitness World, and they went bankrupt, and they restructured and came back as Fitness World again. Do you think
that's right?
What do you think is going to happen to them during this?
I'm afraid what's going to happen to them. I really don't know. I mean, they took a huge hit, reorganized, spent a lot of money doing all of that, and rejigging the gym just to get back up and running. And now it's all taken away from them again. It's really hard to say. There's some other gyms in the area here, which are smaller private gyms, The main one is actually connected to a larger facility that has a bowling alley and a restaurant pub. And so, they'll be able to float through somehow,
Right.
but they have other sources of revenue. But those standalone gyms, they're going to have a real hard time, especially the smaller ones. As you no doubt know, rents are just so crazy high.
Yeah.
How are they going to keep paying rent with no revenue? It just makes no
Exactly.
sense.
No. And, in defense of the landlords too, property tax in Vancouver is incredibly high. So it's
crazy.
I don't even blame our landlord. I understand what property tax is going for. I know what he has to pay. So I'm thinking, well, we have to pay him. It's a chain reaction. And I'm not talking about gyms. There's other businesses that are affected by this as well. Nightclubs, bars.
Oh,
and
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can kind of see where maybe there might be some interaction with COVID, but again, I want to see the stats that show that, because I do think a lot of this is coming from large gatherings in people's houses, house parties. I believe this is where it's coming from for a lot of these cases. And yet you're allowed to have in your house on Christmas.
Well, that's it. I mean, I got COVID actually.
Yeah, I remember.
In August,
yeah.
I had it.
Yeah.
And it was brutal. It was really, really harsh. I wouldn't really want to visit that on anybody. But we caught it at an event. We were at a memorial service. There were about 70 people there. And we know who we got it from, right?
You do. Okay.
So that's where that came from.
Yeah.
But at the gym, no, I had nothing there. That doesn't make sense to me. So
I want to ask you. So when you contracted COVID, how long were you laid out for?
It was definitely 2 weeks that we were completely out of commission.
Wow.
I lost about 15 pounds in that time. My partner, I ended up taking her to the hospital just to get rehydrated because she couldn't even keep water down. She had really, really bad nausea the whole time.
Right.
I had some of that too, but not as bad as her.
Okay.
The most difficult thing about it, I mean, we've all had like really bad colds or even some flus, some of us. And in many ways, it's like that. The difference I found was when I had a normal type of a cold or flu, sort of day by day, incrementally, you can sort of feel changes. Eventually they improve and you get better. You get better. But with this one, it was just day after day after day of exactly the same thing with no change at all. And that really is mentally tough just to
and
deal
scary.
with that, and scary. Yeah.
Do you notice any long-term side effects now that you don't have it anymore?
Not serious, but I still have no taste or smell.
No way.
Yeah.
Really? So no taste at all? Wow.
No, well, I can tell if something is spicy.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, no real taste. No.
Really?
So it just makes it easier to stay away from sweets.
Yeah, no
there's
kidding.
no point.
Yeah, your diet is probably perfect.
Well, it should be.
Yeah.
It's not, but it should be. It would be easy now, that's for sure. Obviously, you can still have texture, right? And and I found that psychologically, you remember what chocolate tastes like, so you want to have a piece because there's that mind muscle memory connection thing going on. But there's actually no taste. There's actually nothing happening when you eat it. So it's kind of weird that way. And then also for about a couple of months after that, I continued to have like pressure in my chest and whatever. So they sent me for some x-rays just to rule out pneumonia, and it was all fine. It was just one of those effects that eventually resolved and went away. So that's normal. But the taste thing, that's still there. Yeah.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you next was, did you notice anything with your respiratory system? Like as far as like when you were working out in the gym, breathing, did you have to catch your breath, take you a little longer in between sets to catch your breath afterwards?
That's complicated in my situation by the fact that I discovered in this last year that I have asthma. So I've had it all my life, but being sort of an active person my whole life, I always just poo-pooed it or said, "Oh, you're just being a pussy," or you're just out of shape. Come on, suck it up, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And for me, it was never the severe kind that's life-threatening. It was just I would get out of breath too fast or faster than I should be for what I'm doing. And it would take me a lot longer to recover my breath. So,
Yeah.
for example, a leg workout would be a real chore
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'd be sucking wind like you wouldn't believe
Yeah.
after doing something heavy. But you persevere and you push through it. But finally I went to see somebody, a respirologist, and got the appropriate puffer for that. So I do that on a regular basis now. That's helped a lot. So it's hard for me to say how much of that was COVID related or how much was just
The
for something
asthma.
pre-existing.
Right. Yeah. I want to switch gears because one of the things I wanted to bring you back on the channel for, the last time we spoke, which was about a year ago, there was a professional bodybuilder named Luke Sando who passed away. He committed suicide, and he was young. I think he was in his late 20s. Since that time, we have more than four, but we have four big name bodybuilders that have passed away, all under the age of 50 years old. And these are big names. I mean, Sean Roden, John Meadows, Mike Mendenhall, George Peterson. And you mentioned to me off camera a few of the female bodybuilders as well and fitness models. What the hell is going on in the fitness industry right now?
It's so scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. When we first talked about it, I actually did a little bit of research, and at that time, that was before all of these recent ones, the statistics from the literature I read suggested that the ratio of people passing who were bodybuilders to the general population was about right. In fact, it was probably a little better. So even though you'd hear about one or two so often, it was, compared to the general population, statistically correct.
Okay.
It wasn't an anomaly.
Okay.
It was about right. But now there's been so many more over the last year or so that you really begin to wonder. And again, I haven't looked up the statistics now to see if they've changed their view on that. But it is scary, and it's hard to attribute it what it's to, because we never have access to the coroner's reports or anything like that,
autopsy
any
report.
official conclusions.
Yeah.
So nobody talks. So it's a lot of speculation, and I think a lot of people drift right away into it's the drugs, and I can't discount that. I mean, obviously, some of these people are most likely heavy users of various kinds. But at the same time, many times there's other issues at play. There's either pre-existing health conditions or pre-existing mental health conditions.
Yeah.
In the case of suicide, for example.
Sure.
And those play a role as well. And it's not entirely, you can't discount that. So it's a real mixed bag. It's hard to say what's going on.
Well, one of the biggest names, Sean Roden, which I believe he was 2018 Mr. Olympia. I think when he won the Olympia, he was 43 years old, 43 or 44, right? Which was, I think, the second oldest Mr. Olympia next to Chris Dickerson back in 82 or 83. But after he won that, I mean, it's no secret, he was facing a rape allegation. So he wasn't allowed to compete for 2 years. He had a lot of stress in his life. Do you think, like you said, pre-existing health conditions, but do you also think things like stress can play a role? Because I think with him, they ruled it to a heart attack. That's what they said. I don't have all the information, but that's what they said it was. Do you think the stress played a role in that case as well? Like facing a rape allegation is a pretty stressful situation. You're not allowed to compete. And I mean, that's his livelihood. That's how he makes his money.
Oh, absolutely. You're going to have all kinds of sponsors reacting to that, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
They're going to play it safe and see how things turn out.
Yeah.
So his income would have been affected. His mental health would have been affected by the worry of it all, the expense of hiring, really good lawyers to deal with that sort of thing. No doubt, stress would be a huge component in his life, and that has to have an effect. I mean, it's medically standard that if you have heart problems, reduce the stress in your life, right?
Yeah.
That's the mantra. So no doubt about it, if he was having that kind of stress, that undoubtedly, in my view, would have had an impact on his overall health, and that could have easily contributed to, in some ways at least, heart attack for sure. I was just going to say, when it comes to health, where the majority of people working out is all about health. It's mental health positive, physical health positive. when you're an elite competitor at the very peak of your game, those usual rules that apply to the rest of us go out the window, right? They just don't apply.
100%. They
Those
have to.
guys are dealing, yeah, those guys and those women, they're dealing with a whole different level of
Exactly.
influences in their life. So, yeah.
It, you know, all these deaths are really sad, obviously, too, right? But it shines even a darker light on the bodybuilding and the fitness industry, because the general public will see steroids, they're dangerous, they kill people. And, you know, you and I, we've been in this game for a long time, and we know the stats, and we both know lots of people who use anabolic steroids. That's no secret. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think it's necessarily people who are abusing the steroids. I think, like you said, you have pre-existing health conditions. You mix that with heavy anabolic steroid use, and if you're not getting your blood work done, I do think that's a recipe for disaster. Because we know lots of guys who use anabolic steroids, and they're fine. They're living in their 60s, 70s. I mean, what do you think about the guys from the 70s, like Arnold and those guys? So I mean, do you think their dosages, everyone talks about how their dosages were so low. Do you believe that? Or do you think they were using the same amount of gear that these guys today are using?
It's, you know, I think they were using the chemical makeup of the gear was probably a little different.
Yeah.
I think these days it's going to be, well, I was going to say purer, better, stronger, and you know, and for them it might be. For the average Joe, you know, it might be watered down a bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not involved in that side, on the fence of that sort of thing, but
Yeah.
There's definitely so many more complicated drug regimens out there now.
Yeah.
The protocols, they're not just doing a few basics like testosterone, dianabol, or
No.
something like. They're, in addition to a whole host of steroids, tren, and everything else, they're also throwing in human growth hormone, and they're throwing in insulin on top of that.
Yes.
So the insulin, especially, oh my gosh, I don't know. That to me is so scary, because you're messing with one of the most fundamental bodily functions you have.
I agree.
And you know, it's like messing with nature, right? Usually you can't win. So
but this is the problem now, is because I'm getting a lot of younger competitors who are in their 20s contacting me, and they're asking me, okay, so what's going to be my insulin protocol? And I'm like, what? Like, wow. I don't use insulin. And they're like, what do you mean you don't use insulin? They talk to me like I'm a dinosaur, and I'm not even that old, but when I was coming up, and I don't compete anymore, but again, on the amateur circuit, nobody was using insulin. No, but I knew what the guys were using. Maybe there was one or two that were, but no one was using really insulin at all. These days, you've got kids who are 18, 19. And when they talk to me about their cycles, I'm like, are you nuts? Like, I've talked to you about this before off camera. I'm like, you should see what these kids are running. I'm like, you're 19 years old. What are you doing? What's happened with society? Why is now the mindset more is better?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And especially at a younger and younger age. Geez, I mean, you don't need anything when you're in your early 20s. No. I mean, your body is producing more than you can use as it is.
Yeah.
You know, build that foundation, build that base. Just go to the gym and eat food like crazy.
That's agree.
The thing, right?
I agree. I just think that
work out like crazy.
I think that old school mentality, though, that you and I have, I think it's dying. I don't know. I just see it with the younger generation, and I'm not bad mouthing the younger generation. I just see it. And I think social media is partly to blame for this, because people see, well, I should be looking like this guy who's 24. And there's guys who are in their early 20s. I mean, you look at, if you looked at last year's Mr. Olympia, Nick Walker, he placed 4th place. What is he, like 23, 24 years old? He's huge. I mean, there's no 24-year-old. He's walking around off season at like 280 pounds. Like, that cannot be healthy. He looks great.
No kidding, right?
But I don't know if I'd want to necessarily, and I'm not saying that maybe he's incredibly healthy. I don't know. Maybe his blood work looks perfect, but I wouldn't feel comfortable walking around at 280 pounds off season. It just wouldn't feel right.
No kidding. The body, you know, it's not made to carry that kind of weight. I mean, your organs alone have to work overtime just to keep up with everything. Never mind your joints and your ligaments and tendons and all that stuff, just to carry that extra weight. With every step you take, you're adding, you know, multiple tens of thousands of pounds of extra pressure on every joint all day long. It's crazy. But they do it. And I think it's partly, you know, people want to see freaks. They get off on seeing these monsters. And so the younger guys, they think, hey, I'd like to get that attention. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. I'd like to be one of those guys. They admire it, so they want to be it. And so they do everything they can to get there. And the genetically gifted ones, or the ones gifted with the right work ethic and everything else, discipline, they'll get there. They'll
They
do
will.
it.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll do whatever it takes to get there too, and that's the scary part, because that translates to the younger kids then, the ones who are not genetically gifted, the ones who don't have the discipline or the work ethic, and they focus on the drugs. Oh, if I take that regimen, I can be like that too.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. All they do is they hurt themselves badly.
You're 100% right on that. And I still have friends that compete at national level, and they still chasing that pro card. And my theory is you're eventually going to get that pro card. That's great. But when you get to that pro level and you're competing against not just Canada, but all of North America, not even North America, the entire world, you're going to get smoked because you just don't have those genetics. And it's sad, because a lot of these guys I know who I came up with, they're still chasing that pipe dream. And I mean, they're not putting any time or effort towards establishing a career, a business. Everything goes into these competitions. And I was really fortunate, because I was able to wake up and go, what am I doing here? I mean, I'm spending all my time and effort into a $5 trophy when I should be putting my time and effort into a business, right? And do exactly what you and I did for years, which is keep bodybuilding separate as a hobby, you know, something we enjoy. Yeah. You competed for the last, 15 years, right?
Yep.
And you did this while holding down a whole 40, 60 hour a week job.
Yeah, that's right.
So it can be done.
It is possible. It is possible. It can be done. And it just depends on your own discipline, self-discipline. And when you're in the gym, you're focused and you put in the effort. You know, that's the main thing. And do it right. I'm always learning. Even now, I've been involved with this on and off kind of since I was 14 years old. Yeah. And that's, that's like, man, that's 47 years. Yeah. And I'm still learning, right? I'm still reading stuff and learning, and I'm a little smarter now. I don't just take everything in as gospel truth. I'm able to sift through it and say, nah, that's not right.
You can shift through the bullshit.
There's still nuggets out there. And when you come across them and you actually try them out and test them, and hey, that actually works pretty good. But it's
how has your training evolved over the last 30 plus years?
I've settled in the last number of years into a routine that I rarely change now. Yeah. And it's because it works and it's balanced and I really like it. Okay. Before that, I would try various things. In fact, sometimes I would sort of switch between more of a powerlifting routine and then back to more of a bodybuilding routine. And it was a little more scattered. It wasn't really focused in the early years, for sure. I was an admirer of strong guys, like heavy squatters, things like that. And I would try that sort of thing, but I never had a good mentor ever. Or back then, there weren't really good trainers either, unless you belong to a powerlifting club or something like that, which I didn't. Right. And
there was no internet
I was kind
either.
of on my own.
Yeah, there was no internet, right? So you had to research everything yourself in books and find out what you could from the local, maybe bodybuilder gym right at the gym. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like there was no YouTube, nothing like that.
No.
So I mean, people today are so blessed. They've got so much. They've got excellent trainers like yourself. And even on YouTube, there's some really good stuff out there. You still have to sift through it to find, the proper things, but it's possible. You can, and it makes a big difference. Yeah. Actually, I should point out that the program I'm doing now, and which I've been doing now for a number of years, is one that I got from you when you prepped me for one of my competitions.
Oh, cool.
And it really worked so well that I've kept it. And I adapt a little bit. So, for example, I don't do squats anymore, but I've replaced it with, other things. And that's just because I have injuries in my hip and whatever. Squats don't work anymore. But so it was because of a program you set up, and it really worked super well. And I just kept it. It's great.
Well, I think the reason why you've been able to survive so long in this industry, because let's face it, there's a lot of guys in their 60s who are not training, in their 50s who are not training anymore, right? They have too many injuries. And I think it's because you're willing to adapt and change, where a lot of guys will just keep going in. I remember when I first met you, it was back at the Pantheon days, going back to like 2007, 8. And a lot of those guys were, at that time, they were in their mid 50s, and they were just doing all these crazy deadlifts and squats and going ridiculously heavy, and their joints were already shot. There's no way none of those guys are training anymore. They can't. So what's good is you don't have an ego. And I remember when I was training with you for your last show, you're like, I don't think I can squat anymore. And you weren't babying out of it. You just like, I just can't do it. My hip's going. And so we found alternatives, and you just adapted and changed, and you still came out looking great on stage. So that's where you have to take the ego out of it.
You really do. Absolutely. And I have to do that even more over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because, now I'm in my early 60s, and the reality is, I can't lift as much as I used to, and it hurts. I really emotionally it hurts. Right?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah,
I get it. I see a 30-year-old lifting something, and I'm thinking, oh, I can do that. No, I can't anymore.
No.
And so I've really had to work hard at adjusting that part of my life and accepting the fact that it's not what it used to be. It's still pretty good, I think, but it's not what it used to be. And, you just sort of pound away at it and keep going. That's all. It's about the long game, too. At one point, I remember when I was roughly 40, I asked myself, what do I want to be like when I'm 70, 75, 80? And whatever I wanted to be at that age, I realized I had to start now. Like I can't wait till I'm 65 and then start.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
And, one of the pros that I appreciate a lot, or have come to appreciate a lot more over the last couple of years, he's retired too, and that's Jake Cutler. And that's because he has the long game in mind too.
Yes.
He is all about doing like high volume training, and not necessarily really heavy or anything like that, because he's thinking about joints and whatever when he turns 70. He wants to keep going.
You're right.
And so that's been a good inspiration. I appreciated that a lot too. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Jay Cutler, because he is without a doubt my all-time favorite bodybuilder, but also my favorite businessman, because he was able to combine business and bodybuilding. He was so smart. And like you said, I mean, you look at his counterpart, Ronnie Coleman, best bodybuilder of all time, no doubt. But Ronnie Coleman's in a wheelchair now. And it's because of the way he trained. I know he'll say it's not because of the way he trained, but you've seen his videos. Ronnie Coleman deadlifting 800 plus pounds with terrible form, squatting with terrible form. I'm sorry, but you can't tell me that's not why you're sitting in a wheelchair now. I don't buy it. And then you look at Jay Cutler, who's I think Jay's got about 10 years. He's 10 years younger than Ronnie, 10 or 8 years younger. But at the same time, I mean, he's looking great. He's in his late 40s. He looks fantastic. And he's not as big as he needs to be anymore. And I know there's a lot of diehard fans out there. They'll start knocking on someone like Jay Cutler or even Dexter Jackson, who's downsized in size now. Like, oh, look at these guys. They look so small. Like, what the hell do they want to be walking around at 300 pounds for now? They don't need to be that big. So yeah, they're not going to be. They're thinking, like you said, the long game. And I wrote a blog a few weeks ago talking about, can money and muscle mix? Can you have one and have the other at the same time? And you're a perfect example of this, is because you were able, you have a very successful career. You have a great physique. So there's a lot of people that will do one or the other. I train people who they make a lot of money, but they don't give a shit about their health, and they let their health go to shit. And then there's the people who obsess about their physique and they can barely hold down a job. So if you can balance both, even better, right? The problem is a lot of people can't do that. And Jay Cutler is a perfect example of someone I've always admired in that industry. And I always looked up to him. I'm like, look at the way he's done it.
Yeah, 100%. I agree completely about that. And I appreciated as well your philosophy as well, just, having got to know you over the last 15 years or so, because I've seen that in you as well. And it resonated with me. I just remember when I was still going to high school, I had an excellent teacher who, at that time, one teacher who was really good, the rest not so much, but he was really good.
Yeah.
And what he talked about in one of his social studies classes was we were studying the Renaissance, and the idea of the Renaissance man, and how this was an individual who, he wasn't part of the elite. He wasn't working. He found balance and everything. He was able to do all, and that I thought was so cool. And I thought, well, why can't I just do everything? Like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe I'm not going to be the very best professional person out there in my field.
Yeah.
That's okay. I don't have to be, as long as I'm doing the best that I can and doing excellence every day that I'm there.
Yeah.
I may not be the best athlete of whatever my sport was, but I can be pretty darn good and really have a lot of fun with it. And I'll have both. I'll have enjoyment in both fields.
Yeah.
And it is possible. So I would definitely say for anybody listening, or especially younger people, don't neglect one area of your life at the expense of another. You know,
100%.
Try to, as much as possible, have that balance and become excellent in everything.
And it's funny because when you're younger, when you're in it, you don't really see it. And I remember when I first started competing in shows, I was all in. Like, I would sacrifice hours on the floor with clients. I'd like, whatever, I'm not going to train those people because I need to conserve my energy for my workout. And yeah, I was doing well on the stage, but like you said, there was no balance. It was all or nothing. I had relationships that suffered because of it, and my business suffered because of it. And it wasn't until I realized, I woke up, I'm like, what am I doing here? I have to think long-term. And I think a lot of people, they just don't have that long-term focus. They're just thinking, okay, I want it now, and this is what I have to do. Okay, I'll do this, I'll give this up, I'll do this. And for some people that works. Like you said, if you have the genetics in this sport and the talent and the work ethic, by all means, go up there and do it. But that's only a small percentage of the population, 5-10% of the population. For the average
guy. That goes
guy.
For everything, though. Yeah, absolutely. I think that goes for everything. Like, if it's your chosen profession and you have a gift for that, then exploit that giftedness as much as possible and take it as far as you can, because you'll be contributing to society in ways that nobody else can. And that's a duty almost to do that, right? But I'm talking about the average ordinary person, strive for excellence in everything that you do to the best of your ability, and do that in every field, like, and have that balance. And I mean, for me personally, that includes a spiritual component too. So, that's just another part of my life that I'm always working on and developing, as besides the physical and the work and the play and the spiritual, they all kind of connect and make you a whole person.
I have one more question for you before I let you go, and it's about competing. Are you officially retired from the stage now, or is there a comeback on the horizon in the next 2 or 3 years? What do you think?
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. You never say never.
Yeah.
But I have been telling people never.
Yeah.
Even though I shouldn't be. But you know what? Every once in a while, when my diet's been on point and my workouts have been on point, and I catch a glimpse of myself after taking that shower, I could probably do another one.
Yeah, you really could.
Yikes. It's you know what? It's not the workouts. The workouts, I love those. That's the easy part. 100% dedicated to that. The diet is the hard part. And to be so focused and so no compromise, that's what it takes. And I don't know if I'm up for that right now, today. No, but you never know, right? Like, maybe in the spring, I'll really start taking that seriously again.
Well, there was a time, I remember, I think it was in the span of even a year and a half, possibly 2 years, where you and I did 3 shows. And you were dieting pretty much for 24 months straight at one point. When that was over, though, and I like to ask all competitors this, because I've gone through this myself. When that's over and you're just like, okay, well, now the show's over. Someone who doesn't compete is not going to understand this, but someone who competes will get it. When it's over and there's, whether you won or you lost, however you placed, there's no more show. Do you find it difficult to get the motivation to go back to the gym and train?
No, you know what? I never have.
Yeah.
Until recently, and it's not because it was after a show. I think it's because it was after COVID.
Okay.
And I was laid up for a long time. I was away from the gym for 3 weeks, at least. And even when I went back and I mentally felt okay, people later on told me I still look pretty gray going in there.
Yeah.
But I did find it more difficult to be motivated to do the workouts at that point. And I think it's partly because it just didn't have the same importance to me as it used to.
Right.
Various reasons. I'm not sure if it was because of the COVID experience or because of just life and getting older, and having had a number of people pass away in my life over the last couple of years. You know, and again, as I say, just being older, it's like you don't know about this yet, but you'll experience it eventually.
Yeah.
And that is, as you get older, you become more and more invisible.
Okay.
And
What do you mean
I'm
by
beginning
that?
to see, you know, people don't see you, like almost
Okay.
literally. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And the younger they are, the less they see you,
Okay.
right? It's like you don't exist.
Right.
You're just an old person.
Okay.
You know, you can have the most fantastic physique
Yeah.
out there in the gym, and lift more than everybody else and be a super nice person.
Yeah.
But especially for young people, they don't even see you. They don't even acknowledge you. Uh,
Really?
it's the weirdest thing. Yeah, you'll find out. You'll see.
Okay. No, I'm just surprised because I actually, when I started the channel again since COVID, this is lockdown part 2. You're the first person I thought of because I like picking your brain. I love talking with you. You're fun to talk to, and you're actually really interesting. You've got a lot of good opinions. So I'm just surprised to hear that, because I mean, you're actually very valuable resource. Just if someone doesn't want to make mistakes, not only in training, but maybe in business, even, to go to you. Right. So, and you're telling me, well, no, you're invisible. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always, yeah, go ahead.
It's just a thing in our society. It's ageism, right? It's like people,
that does exist.
When your hair is getting gray or receding or whatever, and you just develop a certain look, you're just dismissed as being irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Go ahead.
So that may be what's impacting my motivation a little bit more. But at the same time, I really love it. And so whenever the gyms are taken away like they are now, I feel it. I really notice it. And I'm like, oh, come on.
It's funny.
Sort of like
for me, it took me a while because I was competing at one point. I remember I was doing 2 or 3 shows a year at one point, and Robin was helping me get ready for all those shows. And we would spend 5-6 days a week in the gym, doing an hour of cardio. She'd always do cardio with me. So it was good having her by my side, because she would do every cardio session with me, every workout with me. And, when I stopped competing, I said to her, I was like, what's the point? I mean, what am I doing this for now? I don't really need a reason. And it was really hard to get motivated again until I started training at my own gym. And I had my gym is like, you've seen my gym. It's like that Rocky in the Dungeon kind of, and you can blast, the music as loud as you want, throw in some AC/DC, Motley Crue, whatever you want, loud, super loud. You don't have to worry about censoring your music like in some gyms. And I got it back because I was having fun with the workouts again. And I didn't put much stress on myself. I'm like, you know what, today I can't do bent over rows. My lower back's bothered me a little bit. I didn't stress about it. I was no big deal. And I was just having fun with the workouts again. Like, it got back to the basics. And so I've had a lot of people ask me, are you going to compete again? And honestly, I don't think I will. And it's because now I have fun working out. And sometimes I'll go to the gym, I'm not kidding you, 14, 15 days in a row, which I know you're not supposed to do. I do it because I love it. It's a stress reliever. I love doing it. I don't, honestly, and I can say this honestly, it's not even about the aesthetics anymore. I just enjoy doing it. It's like, yes, I want to look good. You want to look good, of course. But at the end of the day, that's not my reason for going to the gym. It's no longer my reason. And the health component
that's excellent.
And the health component, like you said, plays a big role now, because I am getting older, and I'm like, I was in the hospital twice in the last 12 months, first with my appendix, and then I had that grand mal seizure. So since then, I'm like, okay, I got to really start taking care of my health, like really focusing on my health overall, not just looking good, right? And that's the gym plays a role.
100%. Yeah.
So if I want to do this on air, if I have an option of getting you on for an iron debate, would you be open for it?
Iron debate.
Yeah.
What are we debating? Well, what are we talking about?
I'll send you the topics off camera, but I actually would like to get you on because there's a few topics I want to talk about when it comes to the way training is going these days, especially training in the gym. Like some of the training styles I'm seeing in the gym these days, I question, and I want your thoughts on them because I'm sure you've seen them as well. Phones in the gym, things like this. And someone who's trained, you've trained for 3-4 decades in the gym now, right? So you've seen training evolve over the years. And I'd love to get your thoughts on how training overall has evolved in your opinion. If you think it's going in the right direction or the wrong direction.
Yeah. Okay, good. 100%.
Perfect.
I've got some good Good thoughts on that.
I
Yeah.
know you did. That's why I wanted to ask you here, so you'd say yes. So now I got you locked in.
Yeah.
All right, I
Okay.
want to thank you so much for coming on. I know you're really busy, so I really appreciate you spending time with me today. And
It was a real pleasure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
no, and I think this episode is probably going to go up on Friday, so Friday of this week, so it'll be up. So I'll tag you on Facebook.
All right.
I'll tag you on Instagram. You know you don't use Instagram, but I'll still tag you on Instagram, so you'll be up there, so you can put it up on your
All right.
Instagram as well. All right, thanks so much. I really
Great.
appreciate it. Okay, enjoy the
Good
rest
to
of your
see you
day.
again.
Tell Elka I say hi.
Okay.
Yeah, have a good
Thanks.
one.
I will.
Bye.
Okay. Take care.